your mind. Open your mind. Open your mind.
Frustration spills over into violence on the streets of the capital of Kyrgyzstan. The former Soviet state is one of the poorest countries in Central Asia and ranked one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Its president, Kurmanbek Bakiev, declared a state of emergency after crowds of protesters stormed government offices, beating up the country's deputy prime minister and interior minister. The demonstrators are angry about rising prices, unemployment and authoritarian rule, which has seen opposition leaders arrested. In Bishkek, riot police opened fire on crowds with machine guns, leaving dozens dead and hundreds injured. The police themselves have come under attack, their cars set on fire, and offices cornered in buildings by angry mobs. The latest reports suggest opposition leaders...
The U.S. could be on the verge of a debt disaster. Don't take our word for it. Even the White House's budget director says the future isn't looking good.
Here to explain is Rick Berman. He's the executive director of Defeat the Debt, a project of the Employment Policies Institute. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, Allison.
All right, so as we all know, the United States has, at the moment, an unblemished AAA credit rating. Is that somehow about to change?
Well, it certainly looks like it. The last debt offerings by the government came in at higher interest rates than some corporate debt. Warren Buffett can now borrow money at a lesser rate than the United States government because we are running up these huge deficits that, unfortunately, most people don't fully appreciate. And if I don't get anything done in this interview, I want your viewers to understand one thing. When they hear about trillions of dollars, and we're now adding about $1.5 trillion to the debt every year, think of it this way. 1 million seconds takes about 12 days to elapse. 1 trillion seconds takes over 31,000 years. So when you start to understand how big a trillion is versus a billion or a million, you start to think about real money. And when we're adding $1.5 trillion in deficit every year for the next 10 years, and this is the Obama administration's projections, you're talking about huge interest payments, which right now are running in excess of $500 million a day.
It's double trouble for states all over the U.S.
Areas are experiencing very rapid declines in home prices and very rapid declines in jobs.
In particular, Arizona, Nevada, California, and Florida have seen the worst of this trend in their metro areas. The reason? These spots have experienced a heavy loss of manufacturing and construction jobs.
The finances, they're so bad and they're getting much worse. You know, the way they're spending the money, running up the debt, I think the financial crisis is getting so much closer. Interest rates are going up. I think that's a major problem we face. What bugs me about it is that he believes he's achieved great things, you know, by flooding the money with the market, saving the country from depression, taking care of his friends, and the people who lost their jobs don't have a voice. So he thinks he's had a great victory. But the second thing is what's going on over in the Middle East. That's getting much worse. The Iraqi situation is worse. There's rumors now that they won't remove any troops at all. And, of course, we're going to be up to 100,000 troops in Afghanistan. And Karzai is now, feeling very bold and critical of the United States. So when that happens, I just wonder how we'll handle that. Because, at times when our good friends start to act on their own, we usually get rid of them or, desert them or go on their own, So I think that thing is a whole mess and can really blow up in our face. I don't know whether they're lying to themselves, but some of them really believe that things have turned around. They look at the other side of the story and they say, more jobs are being found and that, staying under 10% and there's GDP is going up. And they either try to fool the people or they fool themselves. But ultimately, though, the market rules. The market will dictate, and everybody will catch on. But I think where the disconnect is that the government is putting a positive spin on it. But the people that you talk to and the people in the Tea Party movement, they know better. That's why they're so doggone upset. They're not buying into this. This is a completely different year than we've had in, I guess, many years.
So what will happen if California or New Jersey go bankrupt and a Governor Meg Whitman a year from now or Governor Chris Christie go to the president saying, Give me 25 or 30 billion. Otherwise, I can't run police departments. I can't operate bridges. I'll have to shut down highways and schools.
It's already happening. Let's look at the number beyond that. When you put all the states together, the budget shortfalls are approaching 200 billion. And then there's all those pensions that they'll never pay, they can never meet. The collapse is underway. And I was there in the 60s as well. And I would say that what's going on now is even greater than what happened in the 60s. Because in the 60s, a lot of it was motivated by guys getting drafted that didn't want to go.
Exactly. It was motivated by young people who simply didn't want to go to the war.
Right.
Put aside the fact that the draft is unconstitutional and the war was illegal and it was based on a trick perpetrated on us by Lyndon Johnson. The resistance in the 60s was young people. The resistance today is young people, but it's also suburbanites. It's also middle America. It's also the backbone of this country. It's basically saying to the federal government, enough is enough.
That's right. You don't have construction workers now throwing bricks on marchers. They're the marchers. This is much bigger, Judge. We've said this over and over again. The Second American Revolution has begun.
Los Angeles officials say the city will be running in the red by the first week of May. It's part of what officials call the city's worst financial crisis in recent history. For much of the past year, Los Angeles has been teetering on the verge of bankruptcy. City officials had hoped to keep things operational until at least the end of the fiscal year, but now that appears unlikely unless some drastic action is taken. City officials are meeting throughout the week to determine how to keep the city from shutting down. Officials say the best way to do that is to pull $90 million from the city's reserve fund. Otherwise, the city will have no money to pay its employees.
And I'm absolutely sure it will recommend something new in American history, a national sales tax, which is called a VAT in Europe. All the Europeans who have the kind of entitlements America is now going to have, healthcare and all the others, need the VAT because it's a gusher of income for the government. And once you have that, even at very small levels, a percent or two of a national sales tax, that's how the liberals think they will be able to fund this new, very expanded entitlement state. It's the way it's done in Europe. It's going to have to be done here.
And I came to the conclusion, sort of back of the envelope, that the only thing I could conclude was that the leadership as a policy was planning on very significant depopulation worldwide. That was the only way I could explain, the 20 policies I was seeing being implemented both here and globally with the WTO, particularly the control of the food supply and system with sort of what Monsanto is doing in genetically modified food. And I was very quiet about it at the time, because I knew other people couldn't fathom what I was saying. And I remember in 1998 or 99, a very, very savvy portfolio strategist from the financial community called me up and said, "Can you have lunch with me? I'm going to be in Washington." And we went to lunch at Union Station, and he looked at me and he said, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I've done the analysis, and if you look at the changes in policies that are being rolled out over the last 4 years, the only thing I can conclude is they're planning on significant depopulation. And I said, well, that's what my analysis shows. And we just kind of stared at each other.
Mercury-containing vaccines may help, not harm kids, according to 2 new studies in the journal Pediatrics. There have been widespread concerns that mercury-based preservatives in vaccines might impair the neurological development of children. These new studies suggest that the opposite, that the preservatives may actually be associated with improved behavior and mental performance.
They just keep coming.
What? Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
What is Fox News? It's just a parade of propaganda, isn't it? It's just a festival of ignorance. What? Why 1 million people are dead in Iraq? Come on, this is ridiculous. What's the point of this? This is insane.
Well,
go out, people at home. Go outside. Go hug your children.
Lee, you should be more.
Well, Fox
you should be more worried.
Love your family.
And you get all the news at Fox. You get all the news you can at Fox News.
Here we go again.